All right, here this morning on whatever today is, the 24th.
I think so.
I think so. We're not great with dates. Just me and Chris again today here.
Yeah.
We've been rambling in here, I don't know, talking for like the last 15, 20 minutes already.
Yeah.
And,
You missed it, sorry.
I know. It's been kind of interesting. You know what's been weird is I have listened to these a couple times, and I feel like my voice is deeper when I do the podcast, when I listen to it.
Are you doing that on purpose?
I don't think so. I think, like, when I'm talking to you, I feel like I'm talking in the same way. But then I listen to the podcast, I'm like, it seems like he's trying to make his voice intentionally deep.
Okay, so...
I sound weird, I guess.
Getting used to your own recorded voice is one thing.
It is weird.
It's funny that you would mention it just because I was recording, just real quickly, some, like, guitar stuff to remember it earlier this week. And actually the same thing was happening to me, like, when I played it back, the guitar part sounded a little lower than I thought I was hearing it.
Yeah.
And I thought, wait a minute, there's something wrong with this recorder. And so I was playing along with it, and it's exactly what I was playing. And I thought, oh, that's weird. So I'm hearing things a little lower than they actually are now, which I hope that's not going to be a habit for me, because that
that's
could mess
important
stuff
for
up.
you. Like, for me, it's like, whatever. Yeah. But for you, like, that's a problem. I do a lot of music stuff. I need to hear it. Right?
Something wrong.
Oh, you know what? We had focus last night. We had a high school focus last night, right? And so back in the fall, you guys might find this interesting, but Chris, I know you will. In the fall, Matt Albright gave them a bunch of topics, right? And said, well, he asked them for a bunch of topics. They came up with a bunch of topics of this stuff, this stuff, this stuff.
Cool.
Yesterday, I give them that list again, and I said, hey, these are the ones I think you covered. These are the ones that I think I know how to teach on, and these are all things I have no idea what you are actually trying to learn, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, give me 3 questions on these different topics, maybe 10, 15 different topics, and just ask me questions about them and tell me what you
So this was to the group, like to the high school students?
Yeah, like 25 of them or something like that.
Cool.
And so they write down questions, and you got all your normal things that are kind of green here. They've got topics. They want to talk about homosexuality. They want to talk about gender identity. They want to talk about drugs. They want to talk about magic. They want to talk about whatever. What do you think is the number one thing that got the most questions?
Oh, man. What do I think because I have high schoolers and so maybe I know? Or what do I think by me?
That's a good point. What do you think high school students would have asked the most questions about?
Today, I would think it's something to do with gender or sexuality, probably. That's what I would think just off the cuff today.
And it's certainly up there. For sure up there. Mm-hmm. Number one thing was money.
Money. That's actually wise.
It is wise.
That's wise to ask about that.
I
wouldn't have asked about that.
No, me either. I was like, they're all asking about money. Should I save money? Should I spend money? How is it if it's all God's money? How should I use it? Should I tithe as a high school student? I was like, no, we're about to get into this.
That's really, man.
They're smarter than me, man.
They are smarter than me too. That's really good. That cheers my heart a little bit right there. I'm so grateful.
Well, and so many of their questions were from such a good spot. I mean, they're trying to learn. I love them.
That's good.
I love them. But today, you and I aren't talking about that. We're talking about
surprise.
1 Corinthians 2. Oh, no, not 2. 1 Corinthians 12, and 13, which is a little bit of what Pastor C is going to be preaching on. But so it's only 2 verses. So I wrote up some questions and just kind of have some thoughts. And I think that there's more ways to go. But really, we're talking about the church here today, and how the church functions and how the church works. And really, Paul's talking about the big church, the capital C church, all
universal church,
the universal church. But yeah, I guess so. I'm thinking, and I'll just start, I guess, with that question number 1, and I think we'll kind of get off this stuff a little bit. But as you think about your role in the church, what do you kind of think about your role in the church as being? And how do you think God is kind of calling you to help Webster Gardens be healthier? Because even though he's talking about that big church, we're also here kind of in our own congregation now. How's he calling you to help the church kind of accomplish God's mission, that kind of stuff?
So that's the first angle. Thanks for the questions, by the way. And I think the first angle that I was thinking about this was in terms of the body and the body parts kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then I don't know that I actually even know what I am.
Right.
which is to say, I think I behave like a voice a lot.
Yeah.
But I wonder often if I shouldn't be more of an ear.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah,
or
I
maybe,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm like a hand or a finger where I'm like pointing to Jesus. You know what I mean? So, body part wise, I don't think I've rightly discerned, what my role is or what I am.
Yeah.
I think just in general terms, though, like in just linguistic terms, one of my big roles maybe is an encourager.
This is why we talk so much. Because that's me. I'm an encourager.
Yeah, well, and so that's good.
Yeah.
We kind of feed off each other, which is helpful because I think everyone needs encouragement.
Yeah.
Honestly. So yeah, I don't know if that role was carved out for me or if I just took to it somehow. I mean, I don't know how to describe it, I guess. But that's what it seems like. Like I want to encourage people, like we were talking right before the recording, would encourage people, like the psalmist would encourage people to declare the awesomeness of God and the ways that He's been, faithful to us, or the mighty things that He's done, or whatever, that kind of stuff. I think it's important to encourage people to declare those things about who their God is. But I think it's also important to help people see their giftings and to help people grow in their giftings. I'm not perfect at it, but I think a lot of times I get to see a little bit of that. Maybe God shows me that in other people, and so then I can help encourage those people. And of course, music is one of those areas, right, that's obvious to me. But
Right.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Well, no, yeah, one thing I'm curious about, and I want to be careful because I don't want to just get to a spot where we're like pessimistic or complaining, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, your small group should never be in a spot where you just complain. You can vent but work towards a positive. But my question, the thing I'm curious about that I don't have out even on these sheets yet is like, what do you see as some of the bigger challenges in church community, or some of the areas that like church communities are falling short? What are some of those things that you see like that's just making it difficult for that body to be healthy? Obviously, Christ is the head, right? So
Right.
I mean, He's the one we all draw strength from, that kind of stuff. So I don't want to necessarily go down this spot of we have no power and Christ isn't awesome, right? He is awesome and He's taking care of us. But what do you see as some of those challenges that we're facing, or things that we struggle with on our side?
Boy, it's tricky, because I want everyone to hear what I'm talking about with the spirit of love.
Yeah, I was debating even asking the question because it can be
Well,
difficult.
So I think really two things are so critical that we have got to look at. One of those things is thinking we have it, thinking we've got something nailed when we don't. My drum instructor, when I was a teenager, and I was learning to play not just drums but to play with other people, would say to me, remember, just as soon as you think you got it, you don't.
Right.
Meaning, as a young person learning how to play with other people, as soon as you think you found the groove or whatever, as soon as you think you found the way, you lose track of those other people, and you stop listening, and you stop working together or collaborating, and you start just following your own path.
Right.
But his succinct way of saying it was, as soon as you think you got it, you probably don't. And so I hear him saying that. He's passed on now, but I hear him saying that, in my everyday life a lot of times, like, okay, be cautious because I don't want to think that I've got this all nailed shut,
Right.
So that's one of the things. The other thing, I think this is so huge. I think it's really a challenge in an affluent nation like ours
Mm-hmm.
to be vulnerable and let God mess with us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we let God mess with us the way that he would like to. What I mean is mess with our hearts,
Mm-hmm.
deal with our stuff. And I'm not talking about deal like, a Trump art of the deal. I'm talking about like, let us, change our hearts. I'm talking about change. Like him and Jacob wrestling, and I won't let you go until you bless me. That kind of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are content to be content.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, boring in a way. And
Mm-hmm.
I think God invites us to more depth and more adventure and more challenges.
Yeah.
But he also provides for those things, and he goes before us, and he makes a way. And we just don't let him in enough to mess us up and get out of our comfort zone. Sorry, everybody. I think it's true for me, so I'm not casting aspersions at all.
That's where I was going to go.
I'm not,
yeah.
but it's true for me, but it's true for so many. And then when I encounter people who have thrown, we might say, thrown caution to the wind and really chased after God with what I think might be their whole heart,
Mm-hmm.
it's just stunning to me, and I'm in awe of these people.
It's impressive.
Oh, I'm so grateful for those kinds of people. They're inspiring.
Right.
So, but to think we all could be that inspiring to somebody.
Oh yeah, and maybe are. I mean, there's certainly. It fascinates me because I think sometimes you wonder with those people, do those people think that they're inspiring? Right? They know all the flaws.
Mm-hmm.
We often, I think, struggle with a couple different things. Right? We tend to think people are worse than us or better than us. Or more valuable or less valuable than us. And so we'll look at people and be like, oh, that person, I only see the good things and I don't see their doubts and their struggles. And so they're better. And then this person over here, I see all their doubts and their struggles, and so they're worse. And I think it's tough to see us on a level playing field.
Well, it's dangerous, too, because it's not a comparative existence, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Right. We were talking about this a little bit with high school students yesterday. They just struggled. They came to the conclusion, I think, eventually, but that there's between you and me, there's different value, like down here on earth. I might be better at something, I might be better, more skilled or that kind of stuff. But in terms of actually being more valuable as a human being, that doesn't, that doesn't. It's not true, right? We're the same level of value because God has given us that same level of value, right? He's purchased us with the blood of His Son, and that's the value that we have. Is that
right?
Is that
and
salvation, that life of Christ, we're worth that.
Right. It's because He dwells in us,
right,
that we have value at all,
right,
and because He dwells in each of us,
right,
we're worthy of honor, and we're worthy of that value just because of Him,
and then He paid the price to buy us, even for those those people who He doesn't dwell in, right? Those people who don't have His Spirit inside of them, right? They still have that. He still paid the price for them, right? So they might not have salvation right now, but they have the same value that we have. The same price was paid for them,
So I appreciate it being related to price, and I would say that I don't have anything to disagree with that, but I think it goes. This is how far back it goes. We were created. We exclusively were created in His image.
Mm-hmm.
So because we're created with His breath, His life, and in His image, that's the thing that makes whatever we are.
I was wondering if you were, I was wondering if you were going that direction or if you were going, and I figured it was that direction. This is the direction of like the Spirit post-baptism.
Right. So it's, you mean pre-baptism?
No, like you being valuable because you have the Spirit after baptism, and you're kind of saying you're valuable because God dwells in you from the beginning.
Well, because we're created in His image, right? And therefore, that's why anybody deserves honor. Now, people may behave in dishonorable ways,
right?
And that's subjective always, because we don't have a lock on the objective truth of what's honorable,
right?
Behavior, I mean,
right.
So for some, this may be honorable, and for some, that may be, and they may be opposed.
Yeah.
But what's actually honorable about each and every person is that we're made in God's image.
Yeah.
And I believe that.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's why it's hard for me when I judge by my standards of what's honorable or what's honorable behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to take 100-foot view or whatever, and I have to double check myself and be like, okay,
right.
I don't like what just happened, but it's because I have whatever my standards or values are,
mm-hmm.
and those are in opposition to what just happened. It doesn't make them always right.
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 So, jump in, because I
Tell
think I'm fascinated sometimes with the church and the way the church functions together, and I tend to be a little law focused and action focused in some way. If only the church would do this, and if only the church would be this, and if only, and not Webster Gardens, but just churches in general, and then the world would be a perfect place, or we could make the world. And it takes my dad, honestly, and other people now, they have to remind me that we need Christ. We can't make this thing better, right? We're sinners.
Right.
One thing I like that you really shared is just that one of the flaws sometimes that we think we know too much, and we're not necessarily still learning, right? It's like I know, and there's things that God reveals to us, but the idea that we have even we maybe have a glimpse, right, of who God is, but He is so much more. There's so much more to learn. There's so much that I don't know and that I don't understand yet, and then just a lot of things that adapt or change as time kind of goes. Not core truths, but the way that I would do something, right, might change.
Oh yeah, well, because we're learning and growing.
Right, exactly, and so I like that. We've just got to keep learning, and I think it's just kind of always that same sin of pride. And so we try to, we think we're better than we are. We try to make it seem like we're better than we are. And that's where I think one of the biggest flaws is, or the biggest flaws that will always be just because of our nature. But that, if we're all sitting here saying we're all sinful, right? We all completely deserve to be punished, except that Christ died, so we're not going to be punished, right? We'll be in heaven. And so I should be free to share everything with you, right? For a couple different reasons, right? One, that you can't judge me, and I know that, right? Because God's the only one who can judge me. Two, because you won't judge me because you know that,
right?
Right? Because you don't get to judge me, so I should be able to share everything, right? All my struggles, my insecurities, my doubts, my whatever, without feeling worse about myself from my own judgments and from knowing that you're not going to treat me or judge me differently.
Right.
You might say that's a bad idea, Zach, or you need to fix that, Zach. That would be wise of you. But you won't think that Zach is less valuable as a person, right? You're like, yeah, he's forgiven, he's loved.
So, you go ahead.
Well, and that, kind of, if we were better at that, right?
Yeah.
Then you just look at, man, how much more secure people would be. They'd feel comfortable asking questions about their faith. They would, and working them out. They'd feel more, they'd feel the guilt of their sin less because they'd be able to confess sometimes. And I'd be able to confess to you, hey, I struggle with this. And I'd be able to hear you say, oh, yeah, a lot of people do. Your identity isn't changed. Maybe even I do. And Jesus Christ still loves you and forgives you.
So, well said. Something that bothers me that I think we all could say, oh, well, I can do better. There's no doubt. If you have a doubt about this, I'd love to hear about it, actually. But there's no doubt that the church, capital C, universal church, has a bad reputation among the unchurched. Generally, this is a broad brush, but there's no doubt that there's a lot of, I don't dig the church because this or that. And a lot of it's probably well-deserved. Like, we don't behave like we say we want to. So I've found that lots of times when I can get in a conversation with somebody who is currently an unbeliever or haven't given two thoughts about Jesus ever.
Yeah.
And I can have an honest conversation with them about why it's important to me. One of the things that I hope we'll get to is that they can speak in generalities about the church and disinclude me from the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm aiming for that, but I know then that I am talking directly to them.
Yeah.
And I'm not speaking for the church, and I'm also not overstepping and not trying to squash them with law.
Right.
So what happens is we have a conversation, and someone then might say to me, and hopefully maybe to you or to somebody you know, they'll say, well, how come the church does X, Y, Z? Not you, but like when I see the church, it happens this way.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so that not you is a great qualifier.
Yeah.
Meaning I'm actually maybe on the verge of effectively ministering to this person, even though collectively we've messed up in some area that's important to them.
Right.
Man, I feel like I just tap danced around a huge thing there, but what?
No, you're right, and I got a bunch of thoughts too that I'm.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, I think it's important for us to, as you're saying, maybe I would put it this way, to reserve judgment,
right,
as we talk to people who don't have a grid for Christ,
right,
and to be able to say, well, this is what I believe and why I believe it,
right,
and I'm not throwing stones at you, and I'm eager to hear more about, what you have to say about it.
Right.
And what's frustrating maybe about today's Christianity with quotes around it.
Right.
Because I do think we collectively, or at least let's put it this way, we're reportedly...
Yeah, there you go. See, and I like that, yeah.
This way or that way. And, whenever the church makes a giant mistake, it gets, pointed out very eagerly sometimes, by some media or some press or something. And so then we end up looking bad, even though it was like, 10 people that did something really stupid.
Right.
So I'm urging us to not be the stupid people, but to be the people who are open to sharing. Again, going back to that word vulnerable, I think we got to be vulnerable and let people in. And it's going to hurt sometimes, but.
A lot of this, we've been talking about the church with students a lot recently, so some of the things are going to kind of come back and be about that. But one of the things that we were just talking about was kind of doubts and having doubts, or at least questions, having questions about your faith and having doubts about your faith. And then talking about those things, and as you talk about the big things, it's interesting. I feel like the little things always lead to the big things, right? So if I'm struggling with, I don't know, whatever. If I'm struggling with something and I don't talk to you about it, or I don't talk to anyone else about it, it doesn't get better, right? So if I'm struggling with lust, or if I'm struggling with stealing, or if I'm struggling with lying, or if I'm struggling with greed, or I'm struggling with whatever, right? Any sin, and I'm struggling with that, and I don't talk about it, it's probably not getting better. It's probably going to get worse, right? Just kind of, you leaving it in the dark, it's like a sore that you don't take care of, right?
Right.
And now sin is a little different, but it's probably going to get worse. So slowly it becomes that big thing, right? Slowly it becomes that thing that
totally can,
that can get out of control, and if we could be in a spot where we took some risks, knowing that people don't actually have the right to judge us. And two, demonstrated clearly we're worthy of trust.
Right.
That you can share this thing with me, and I'm only going to love you. And I'm only going to remind you of Christ's forgiveness. And I'm probably going to I might say, yeah, that's kind of dumb. How do we work on that thing? Mm-hmm. And how do I help you too? Because I think that's often the challenge too. And so, we're all sinners. And
right.
and so that's why we come here, to worship a God who forgives us, even when even when I'm talking about this topic and myself sinning and judging other people unrightfully, He's forgiving me for that. And so I can repent to you, hey, I was doing a podcast with Chris the other day, and I was judging people, and I'm sorry for that, and He forgives me, and you can remind me of that.
Isn't
it crazy?
So I'm grateful you said that, because I haven't thought, like, extrapolating it that way, I haven't thought about it like that. Mm-hmm. But it makes total sense. That we're forgiven even for our infirmities as we're working towards, you know what I mean? And so,
yeah. Well, because I think so. This is where my mind went as I was wrestling with this stuff and would just complain about churches to my dad, and he'd be like, okay, can you fix that? No. Can you become perfect? No. So what's it all about? Falling back on Christ, and I'll mess up again tomorrow, and let's fall back on Christ again tomorrow, and Thursday, and today's Thursday, so Saturday, whatever.
Right. Actually, I love so those programs. I've never been in a like a 12-step program thing or anything.
Sure.
So I don't know them intimately. I don't know them from the inside out, but it seems to me, I think it was AA that has a motto of it just take it day by day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not trying to tackle the world. You're not trying to have a clean January or whatever. You're trying to just do today.
Yeah.
And do what you know is right today. And I would love to aspire to that in the spirit.
Yeah.
In truth, I want to be that guy who today does what I think is best and does what's right today.
Yeah.
Because I'm guaranteed to mess up and sin. I'm guaranteed that.
Right.
So why do something that I know isn't right?
Right.
Why would I do that on purpose?
Right.
So I want to take today for this is the only day I have, this moment right now, and that one that just went by. Those are the only ones. Right. Those are the ones that I have.
Right.
And God willing, I'll wake up tomorrow and we can take tomorrow minute by minute and take it one day at a time. Right. That's it, one day at a time.
Hey, question. If you're thinking about that, you're thinking about wanting to succeed today.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking about kind of living the best you can.
Yeah.
What is it that somebody like me can do? What can I do for you as you work at that stuff?
Man, that's a really good question. So I'm grateful for the question because I think it provokes me to understand something about myself, even right now, which is to say I don't frequently plan for other people to participate in my success.
Yeah.
And maybe I should do that.
Yeah, you do it alone, man, right?
I do. I get in a cave mentality, right, where I just I have my stuff I got to do, and I want to do it well, and I want to do it at whatever timing seems appropriate to me. And to have somebody included makes that a little harder to execute, because then I have to think ahead about what I would expect of that person.
Yeah.
And I struggle with expectations. Probably I struggle with it personally.
Mm-hmm.
So struggle putting it on somebody else, that's hard too.
Yeah. I get that.
But the word says, and this is what I always want to go back.
Thanks.
The word says that we are to provoke each other to love and good deeds.
Mm-hmm.
So if no other thing happened but that you came along and were able to spend a minute and provoke me to love and good deeds today, that's an encouragement. I like encouragement just as much as I like to give it. So to be encouraged is helpful. So that's my long-winded answer to that. I don't know if I think it's an area I need to work on.
Right. And I think, and I guess we probably need to wrap up. We're about to hit 30.
Yeah.
And but as I think I have pretty much a similar answer in just that the specifics always have to be worked out based on what I'm trying to do and that kind of stuff, right? Like I might need you to text me occasionally. I might need you to actually physically help me with something. I might need, depending on what the thing is that I'm working on, that I'm struggling with, I might have a different need. But you're right, you got to develop some kind of plan or some kind of, hey, this is how you can help me.
Yeah.
But I think that that's kind of the one thing. And so there's the two things that I kind of need. Is like, one, in some way you actually help me succeed. Right, and so if I say, hey, I want to read scripture, you help me come up with a plan maybe, or you help me find a time to work to do it, or you text me in order to remind me, or maybe my sin's getting in the way and I feel guilty about it or something like that. So you help me kind of work through that, and that kind of leads into the second thing. And the second thing is saying, like, hey, I want to help you succeed, but I want you to know you're already free. Right? You're already forgiven, and a new creation.
Yeah.
So what you're about to do, you succeeding or failing at that thing does not change that.
Yeah.
Right? You're already good. You're free. You're loved. You're a new creation. Mm-hmm. Keep repenting. You know what I mean? Enjoy Christ's forgiveness. Enjoy that freedom. And let me just try and help you succeed because you want to love people and because you want to love God. Right? So there's no fear of failure, I guess,
right.
is where I'm going.
I mean, I don't want anybody to miss what you just said, because I think it's profound. It sounds...
Aww.
No, but it is. Let me give you... Here's a real succinct example. And maybe, I don't know if we'll end with this, but...
Sure, probably will.
Yesterday, I knew that I had to have a really hard conversation.
Yeah.
Yesterday. And I'm like confrontation averse person. I can't stand it.
Me too.
But I knew that I had to have the conversation.
Yeah. And
I knew that without prayer, without turning to my Father, I'm not going to do that successfully at all. But so I shared with a couple people, hey, I'm about to have this tough conversation today. And right in the middle of that conversation, I get a one-word text from somebody I shared with, just says, courage.
Yeah. Right.
And I mean, that didn't take seconds.
Right.
But it was exactly right. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that person's obedience.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was huge help.
Right. It's little things like that, you know?
Yeah.
That support to succeed and the love to fail. You know what I mean?
Right.
The freedom, the reminder of the freedom to fail because Christ has already died to take away all the sins. So.
Yeah.
Guys, we got to wrap up because you're probably not listening at this point because we're, you know what I mean? But it's been great just chatting with you, Chris, as always.
Likewise. Likewise.
Oh, thanks, brother. Cheers, guys.